WrestleMania 41 Saturday night one just ended here. I'm going to be giving you my thoughts and my review on WrestleMania 41 night one. We're going to be discussing the outcomes of the matches and whether the matches were good and whether they were not good. So this was live from Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada. Triple H opened the show just to welcome everybody there. Pretty simple stuff. There were a lot of video packages on the show. I don't think it was quite as annoying as other pay-per-views, but there was a lot of them that where I was kind of like, they would shoot a commercial or a video package, then go to like something somewhat minuscule, then do another one. Some people complained about that last year, less of that on this show, but ultimately I do think this was a disappointing show overall, and I'm going to explain to you why. Now, not everything was a letdown. There were, I would say at least half the show was really, really good, or at least above average, but there were things I also did not like. So I'm going to go into it. They opened the show with Jey Uso versus Gunther for the World Heavyweight title. It was a David versus Goliath affair. They told that story where basically Jey Uso really, really did like sort of train and look into Gunther's like past in order to, kind of anticipate Gunther's moveset, or in order to, prepare himself for the match. But I will say this. Look, I know a lot of folks don't like Jey Uso, and he does get the crowd going, so there's pros and cons there. I will say, of the last 3 WrestleManias, including this one with Gunther, this was the weakest match Gunther's had. Now, it was not a bad match. I'm not saying it was bad by any means, but WrestleMania. This is WrestleMania, and I think I was expecting it to be at least as good as the Sheamus and Drew match. Maybe not as good as the Sami Zayn match, but definitely close. And it wasn't. It just wasn't as good. So ultimately, maybe I set the bar too high, but it is WrestleMania. Jey Uso wound up winning with a number of different finishing moves, including hitting Gunther with his own powerbomb, super kick, multiple top rope splashes, and then he actually put him in the sleeper hold, and Gunther tapped out. I actually did not like that finish. I thought it would have made more sense if Gunther just passed out, kind of like what happened to Jimmy. It would have been better for the Gunther character, and it would have been better, I think, as a more of a poetic homage to what happened on TV. And Jey Uso is the World Heavyweight Champion. Jimmy Uso came out to celebrate with him, and they had a nice little moment there. Again, very uplifting way to open WrestleMania. Then we had the War Raiders against Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, the New Day. This match was kind of sloppily thrown together. The Kofi and Xavier are still taking shots at Big E, so that tells me that WWE is probably still thinking at some point Big E's going to come back. Big E was on the pre-show here. This was a good match. This was a fun little match. It was good, but it wasn't great. Again, remember, this is WrestleMania. They all worked hard. The Viking Raiders are a great team, but let's be honest, their creative has not been all that interesting in years. Like, I like them as individual wrestlers, but there's been no storyline that really has grabbed my attention with the Viking Raiders. The match was good. It sort of felt like just, hey, here's a WrestleMania match, but it didn't feel like a WrestleMania match. It felt more like the main event to a Monday Night Raw. Like, that's really what it felt like. But the New Day wound up winning the tag team titles. It was kind of a weird finish because they basically made it seem like Kofi did something dastardly. But then I realized he did hold, I think it was Ivar. I don't think it was Eric. I think it was Ivar. He held his foot down when Woods got the 1, 2, 3. So a 9-minute, by the numbers tag match. Jay Cargill and Naomi. This went on a bit longer than I was expecting. Jay Cargill had this weather-themed entrance. This was a big proving ground for Jay Cargill because she's being thrown in there. Like, how they say that old saying, like, throw somebody in the deep water, see how they survive. That's what they did with her. She has not had many singles matches in WWE, and certainly not on pay-per-views. It's been mostly tag team, 6-women matches. This was her first singles match, and I actually liked it. I was the guy, and I've said this before if you watch my old videos, when she was in AEW, I would never like her matches. I've been to multiple AEW shows where she's been on the card, and when she comes out, I go to the restroom. Like, she just never really does it for me in the ring. Great package, great look to her, but now she's finally picking up on it. This was a solid match. This was probably the best wrestling match of Jay Cargill's career. Naomi did a great job with her, and I think should be commended for helping get Jay Cargill over. Definitely a challenger for the women's title down the road. Jacob Fatu versus LA Knight was probably my favorite match on the show. Really, it showed the greatness of both these guys. Jacob Fatu is just, I mean, we've talked about him, dude. He's the total package. LA Knight, this crowd, I had issues with this crowd because they were not as hot as the previous few years were. Obviously, the booking going into the show was not as good. And ultimately, based on how this show went, even if tomorrow night, even if night 2 is a barn burner, it's still, I don't think, going to compare to the quality of the last 3 or so WrestleManias. Maybe the last 2. Because WrestleMania 39 and 40, both nights were awesome. This, well, I'll get to it near the end here, but they really did a great job. One of the highlights of the match was Jacob Fatu went for that triple jump moonsault, and LA Knight caught him in his finisher. That was freaking awesome. And he later on in the match, Jacob actually hit that triple jump moonsault to win the U.S. title. I had talked about it, man. The only way they can go with Jacob Fatu now is the U.S. title, and he's the second member of the Anoa'i family to get a win on this show because you got Jay at the beginning and now Jacob Fatu. So the bloodline runs strong in the company, but the bloodline as we knew it is not the same, and that to me is bad. So Rey Mysterio was supposed to wrestle El Grande Americano, but he was hurt on SmackDown, so he was replaced by Rey Fenix. They had the shortest match on the show. It was about 8 minutes. Not a bad match at all. It was a good match, but this also felt like a TV match on Raw. Chad Gable is amazing, and I don't know if they had enough time to put this together. I actually enjoyed it a lot, but it also, I commend them because they only had 24 hours to get this match put together, and they put together a pretty good match. Again, it felt a bit more like a TV main event than a WrestleMania match, but it's okay because it was great. Like, the match in and of itself was great. I still liked the Jacob Fatu LA Knight match, but I think a lot of people are going to pick this as their favorite. Well, honestly, the main event was probably my favorite. We'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, the main event was my favorite, followed by Fatu and LA Knight and Chad Gable, Rey Fenix. It's great to see Rey Fenix at WrestleMania. I mean, he made it there a day before his brother, technically, but it's great to see him there. He's a great package, and he lost. He got beat by El Grande Americano, putting that little shrapnel thing inside the mask and, doing the flying headbutt. Same thing he did on Raw. I really hope that this is going to eventually lead, and I know, listen, I know I'm dreaming. I hope this eventually leads to Sami Zayn coming back as El Generico. I want Chad Gable as El Grande Americano to be every luchador he can until El Generico shows up. That's what I want to see. It's probably not going to happen. That would be phenomenal. Speaking of Lucha Libre, there was a big announcement made today, and I mean, this is a huge announcement. And if you don't understand wrestling internationally, it's not going to get to you, but it's big. AAA, the biggest wrestling company. Well, CMLL is probably a little bigger, but sometimes it's AAA. AAA has been bought by WWE. WWE now owns AAA. They're doing a Worlds Collide pay-per-view later on in the summer. Kind of similar to what AEW is doing with CMLL, but this one came as a shocker. It was announced during the day. El Vikingo, the same guy who wrestled Kenny Omega on Dynamite, about 2 years ago, I think it was. He is back, but now he's in WWE because WWE owns AAA. That is a massive, massive purchase right there because That's half of Mexico's two big. Mexico only has two big wrestling companies, AAA and CMLL. WWE now owns one, so I expect to see a lot more talent trades back and forth, and more stuff involving luchadors, actual luchadors, like ones that practice lucha libre. Tiffany, Stratton, Charlotte Flair. This thing, look, they try to do that thing where they were quote unquote fake shooting. I didn't fall for it. There were some things that bothered me about the match. First of all, Charlotte's entrance I thought was lazy. They tried to give her like a fancy entrance for her coming out of a car, but LA Knight already did it earlier. Secondly, Tiffany and Charlotte wore very similar outfits. This is not the first time they've done this, where they both wore this like pink lace outfit and they both have long blonde hair. So if you're there in the nosebleeds, and remember, nosebleeds cost a lot of money now for WWE, you might not even be able to tell who's who. Because I'm telling you, there were a couple times in the match when you couldn't see their faces, where it was difficult to tell. They looked too similar. One of them should have worn a different color. That bugged me. The match just didn't get going. It just did not get going. The crowd did not crap on it. The crowd did not really crap on Charlotte. The match just felt like they were just kind of doing moves. This was not a good match to me, man. I mean, not a bad match. Just of all the Charlotte matches, think back to all the WrestleMania Charlotte matches. The three-way in Texas at WrestleMania 32. The two matches with Rhea Ripley, which were classics. Charlotte has always delivered on WrestleMania. I will say that the three-way with Becky and Ronda was not that great, but she's like Mrs. WrestleMania, right? If Shawn's Mr., she's Mrs. And this match I thought was the weakest outing for Charlotte. I don't know if maybe Tiffany had butterflies or if she's too green, but it really, really certainly feels like this was disjointed as hell, man. There were some botches. There was a couple times where they got lost out there. Not a great match. That's just my opinion. I really was intrigued by it too because I wanted to see what the hell was going to happen. Just not great. So we've got like 3 matches on this show that were just average or even in some cases below average. And then, 3 other ones that were pretty good. So we're batting 50-50. Main event saved the show. Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, CM Punk 3-way. They worked hard. They did a lot of really creative 3-way spots. It was not one of the best triple threats ever, but it was good. I don't think this compares to the Benoit, Triple H, Shawn Michaels one from WrestleMania 20. But of course, we're never going to see that. Nor do I think it's even as good as Daniel Bryan, Batista, and Randy Orton. Or even Randy Orton, Cena, and Triple H. There have been some great 3-ways at WrestleMania, for titles. This was great. Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, no. This was better than that Cena, Randy Orton, Triple H one. Yeah, no, now that I'm thinking more about it, I did like this match more. But it was what we expected. Lots of drama. Lots of like slow sort of storytelling. Homages to the history of these guys, both Punk and Seth's history, Seth and Roman's history. Paul Heyman was out there and ultimately became the reason as to why the match ended. He was indeed. Look, the finish was predictable. I think people talked about this during the week. I think Raw may have telegraphed it. Paul Heyman turns and joins with Seth Rollins. That's not really a huge surprise. It does change the trajectory of the storylines, and I'm excited for that. And now Seth Rollins, I have been talking about how Seth is becoming a subtle heel starting at the Royal Rumble. But he didn't go all the way with the turn. This was the turn. Heyman and Seth simultaneously turned heel. Michael Cole was saying that Seth sold out to Heyman, but really it was Heyman that sold out to Seth. Now, I will say this. While this was somewhat predictable, the execution was incredible. These guys know how to perform. The match, go out of your way to see this 3-way. If you're not going to watch the show, go out of your way to see this 3-way. You're going to like it. I mean, Roman Reigns destroyed both tables. There were a couple times where Seth wanted to relive the Shield days, and Roman was like, screw you. So they executed it because Heyman grabs the chair. Everyone's down. Roman and Punk are looking. He rolls the chair and gives it to Punk. Roman's like, what the hell? Then he gets behind Punk, and I'm like, oh no. Drops down, low blows Punk. Grabs the chair, gives it to Roman. And everyone's thinking, okay, he's back with the tribal chief. Like, maybe Roman will feud with Punk now, and we'll keep going with this. Then Seth starts getting up. And he gives the chair to Roman, and he's like, let's go. Let's get your revenge. And then once again, Paul Heyman drops down, low blows Roman, and then gives the chair to Seth Rollins, who uses it to clobber both guys, eventually getting the pin with a curb stomp, and he walks out of WrestleMania with Paul Heyman. So now Heyman's found a new student. I thought for a minute, I'm not even kidding, I thought for a split second that Brock was going to come out and lay everybody out and say that I was the original Paul Heyman guy in this company. You know, because that would be true. That would be a true statement. Punk, Roman, Seth, all these guys interacted with Brock way after Brock came in. But, well, the Janelle Grant thing, might not ever see Brock again, or not for a while, I don't know. But I thought that would have fit with the story. But yeah, Seth and Heyman are now aligned, so Roman is by himself. No wise man, and Punk doesn't have his best friend. I was cool, though, the entrances that they did. They had Seth with a flamethrower. Punk had Living Color there, playing him to the ring. A spectacle, as always. Maybe not as much pyro as I wanted, but WrestleMania 41 Night 2. 4 good matches. 3, I would say, average ones. Not the best showing for WrestleMania. Definitely not compared to 39 and 40. There were arguments made that night 1 of those shows were better than night 2. But I will say this. I do think that tomorrow's show, WrestleMania Night 2, is going to be, I think that will blow this one away. I really do think that, especially with the drama of the Cena-Cody Rhodes match and that mystery opponent that Randy Orton's supposed to face. There's all kinds of rumors. Jeff Cobb, Miro, Aleister Black, someone from NXT. I hope it's Vikingo, bro. No, I'm kidding. I don't know who it's going to be. But, yeah, should be good. But this was one of the weaker singular nights of WrestleMania, if you ask me. Especially compared to the last 2 years. The build-up was also weaker than the past few years. I hope that they do get back on the horse and give us something special for the rest of the calendar year going into WrestleMania next year. But Cena and Cody Rhodes is special, so we got that. Anyways, those are my thoughts on night 1 of WrestleMania Saturday. Definitely go out of your way to see that 3-way. I'm out. Take care. Have a good one. See you guys tomorrow.